what a day. Now, like you, I woke up to the news about the American broadcaster, provocateur as well. Let's not pretend that that wasn't part of the act and part of what he did in Charlie Kirk. And if you are somebody who lives online, if you've got a lot of access to the Instagram, X, Twitter, all the rest of it, you're very across who this person is. But I also understand there'll be an awful lot of people who have heard a lot today about this person and sort of, hang on, why is this wall to wall? What's going on? Tonight, I want to try to talk about some stuff that you haven't already heard about why he mattered. And I don't just mean by telling you the great things I liked about him, but there's a real machinery behind this bloke that is worth talking about because, put simply, without him, then the MAGA movement would not have been able to regroup in and around Trump in the lead up to 24, and we wouldn't have had the presidency that has now recommenced in the United States. Now, in a day of a lot of reaction and a lot of emotion, Megyn Kelly is a person who was literally on air today as she was learning about her friend and learning about her friend firstly being injured and then it looking bad and then being confirmed that he has been assassinated. At the conclusion of her broadcast, she was kind enough to give us a couple of minutes to honour her weekly commitment, but she wanted to talk about her friend, and you'll hear from her tonight, again, from the perspective of a friend, not just a person who is talking about a figure that has dominated the past 24 hours of news coverage around the globe.
It's incomprehensible. The loss is so enormous for his family, of course, but for our country. And yeah, for me personally too. I can't quite get my arms around the fact that he's gone, that this larger than life figure who was a spectacular orator, who had his entire life and political future ahead of him, has been taken from us so violently in front of all of our eyes in the most disgusting and vile and jarring way possible, and that we're now living in a world without him. It hasn't sunk in yet.
It is the day after in the United States, and our mate Annalise Nelson Patel will join us to discuss things from the United States. And again, I don't want to go over what you have heard, and understandably so, over the past many hours. I want to try to move the conversation forward to give you some other sense of information here. So we'll park that for a few minutes and we'll get on to the news stories that affect the greatest country in the world, this one. Tonight we have to talk about corruption in Victoria, yet again. Now, is this going to be an issue that will be of sufficient importance to the government to actually deal with? Now, I may be very clear, I'm not making any suggestions about the government, just in case their lawyers are already writing their letters, but we will talk about issues to do with the big build and some big claims being made today. And the pressure is on from inside the government to go, well, further than the teals when it comes to new targets, when it comes to climate change and the targets of the 2035 agreements, which may well be made at a statement, of course, of world leaders in Adelaide, costing us $250 million. Now, again, I'll get to all of the stuff from the United States, but first, let's just start with a little giggle. The Pacific Islands Forum. Now, this is the only time where Australia gets to be the big dog, where Australia, who, of course, bankrolls so many of these nations with so many of their different systems, but so many of them united by Australia, please help prop us up. Now, we do this, everything from paying for elections like we have in the Solomon Islands to paying for the hosting of the Pacific Games. And you know that always when these leaders get together, there are those collective photos where everyone's wearing the uniform. And I've got to say, perhaps like a wedding dress. This is only worn once. I don't know what happens with these ever again. Do people rock around their APEC or their Pacific Island Forum shirts on the weekend, or playing golf when they're post-Prime Minister? Who knows? But if you didn't see this today, may I please bring you this scintillatingly wonderful moment where the Prime Minister, who is oh so perfect, who just does everything right according to everyone who's ever believed in him, actually noticed, everyone else in blue, me in pink. So literally the odd man out, rather than just sort of making a joke of it, up and out of the room to change into something a little more local.
Better in a rapidly changing world. We continue to support and advocacy of our partners to establish the Pacific Resilience Facility.
Oh, imagine the staffer. Imagine the staffer who was asked today, is it a pink day, is it a blue day? Which one are we going to do? Oh, it's definitely pink, sir. You told me it was a pink day. Imagine. Anyway, of course, we'll never know who that is because they're trying to, change the Freedom of Information system, meaning we will never know who was truly responsible for the pink shirt. But, of course, by this time next week, there will have been no pink shirt. Nothing to see here. Let's turn our attention now to the opposition and its side of things here in relation to Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price. Of course, the big news about this time last night was that she had been bounced out of the shadow ministry. We mentioned this because Susan Lee had confirmed it when she was in Hobart last night. She was in Hobart today following up, housing announcement, a couple of local pollies along the ride with her. So, OK, would the questions be about her leadership or the questions be about where do we go from here? No, again, the media is forcing the Leader of the Opposition to say sorry. You mean it this time. Kiss the ring. Look lovingly. Please say sorry. Yet again, here was the media banging away on what has been established. Because remember, she went to Harris Park, that being Susan Lee, and has already said sorry to the Indian community. But can you now do it from Tasmania?
There are calls for Jacinta Price to apologise. Have you yourself asked her that?
Oh my gosh! Like what more? What more? They've got like 2 weeks out of this story, and as I said last night, frankly, while the dust's going to take a while to settle, it's win-win. The leader has asserted their authority. You can't have people out there saying that they don't fully back you as the leader. And Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price has now got the full independence to say whatever the heck that she wants. She will do so in a regular segment here on this program and many other places that we will all look forward to hearing and seeing from her. We should have her on Monday night on the show. So to me, it's win-win. But again, Susan Lee forced to apologise, this time from the building site in Hobart.
But may I take this opportunity as leader of the Liberal Party to apologise to all Indian Australians and indeed others who were hurt and distressed by the comments that were made. OK, we've done it on the mainland, we've done it on the island. Enough. All right? If people continue to be offended by what at worst were clumsy remarks that have been apologised for all up and down and sundry, including the leader now twice, but want to keep going, well then this isn't really about anything other than trying to drag it out into potentially a 3rd week. And that in part will be what part of the press gallery wants to do. Why? Because it's more fun beating up on libs than it is holding the government to account. That, I repeat, is changing the Freedom of Information system that makes it harder for journalists to get information out of the government. Oh, no. But let's make sure even after Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price had been removed from the shadow cabinet, let's keep pretending that it's 3 days ago and it's all about who said sorry and when. Enough, all right? If the media wants to roll on, they can roll on. Everyone else, move on. As for Andrew Hastie, he got close today. Now, he's very smart. He will be a future leader, and pretty obviously, this is a bloke who looks like a Prime Minister one day, right? And I've got no problems with him whatsoever. But he's got to be careful. He was doing a regular spot, I think, with Mark Levy. He's going to do it every couple of weeks, if not weekly, on his program on 2GB. And when he's asked about leadership, all the rest of it, this is what he had to say. Now, he goes close. He wouldn't want to go any further than this, or he's going to end up in the same bucket of not fully supporting the leader, and we know where that goes.
No, the knives are not being sharpened, to use your language. They're not. And what we need now is stability. We actually need to work out who we are and who we're fighting for.
If there is to be a spill, would you put your hand up or not?
Well, there isn't a spill, Mark. People know I have a desire to leave. There isn't a move. Just to be very clear, I know there's been feverish speculation over the last 12 hours. There's certainly none coming from me.
Victoria, look me in the eye. How much are you willing to let your state government get away with? More importantly, the Labor Party in Victoria get away with? Now, we keep being told that there are certain red lines that if a government cross them, then people become so furious that they will definitely vote them out. And I thought Daniel Andrews hit that moment, not with the COVID lockdown, but remember, just before The last state election in Victoria, the Victorian government, the ones who apparently are so much better with health than anyone else, had a system where 33 people died because the ambulance system wasn't working. The O system wasn't working. 33 people died. Perfect example about incompetence and a lack of focus. Government re-elected. Is the same going to be the case when it comes to Jacinta Allen and the Labor Party? Are the majority of people in Victoria so wedded to a one-party state that they are going to re-elect Jacinta Allen and the Labor Party, despite the reporting in and around the first explosions in the money on the suburban rail loop, but now serious allegations in and around corruption, not involving the government, but serious issues involving the big build. Now, Nick McKenzie, who has got an entire cabinet full of awards for his journalism, who, of course, has done it on 60 Minutes, is still banging it out in The Age, and I think this is a big story today, because complaints of rampant rorting, intimidation and kickbacks across big build projects have been secretly lodged with the Victorian government officials for years, undermining Labor's claim that it was blindsided by the scandal engulfing the construction industry and prompting the state's former integrity chief to back a wide-ranging inquiry. Now, remember, when Nick McKenzie was doing the initial reporting in and around some issues to do with the CFMEU standover and all the rest of it, he went to a press conference with Jacinta Allen and basically said, hey, you know, has anyone ever heard of this stuff? Has anyone ever been held accountable for this stuff? And Jacinta Allen at the time said, no, nothing to see here. It's all fresh. Thanks. We'll take your suggestions and put them into the suggestion box. Well, if all of this has been reported to government, guess who ends up being responsible for looking the other way? And that, of course, ends up being the head of government. Can we continue with the quotes here? A major investigation by this masthead has obtained a trove of leaked internal state government correspondence that, for the first time, shows government officials were repeatedly warned of big build corruption from 2023 as recently as June this year. The former boss of the Corruption Commission, or its version IBAC, in Victoria, has come out today and said there should be a royal commission into this. I say again to the people of Victoria, if 33 people dying wasn't enough of a reason to sack Labor last time, will a failure to deal with the corruption issues in the big build project be the straw that breaks the camel's back? Here in part was some of the government response to this reporting today.
Well, the federal government has appointed a federal administrator. That was a significant step in terms of dealing with that particular union, and we're supporting the work of the federal administrator.
All right, some breaking news this evening, which is that the UK government has sacked the ambassador to the United States. Keir Starmer has revoked the official dealings of the US ambassador, or I should say the UK ambassador to the United States. Why? Because he has had quite a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He has been outed as one of those who did his bit for the 50th birthday book. Also, as you can see there, Your Friends Love You. This is even after he had been charged with horrific crimes back in 2008. The matter was apparently decided by the Foreign Minister and the Prime Minister just this very morning in the United Kingdom, and not that long ago, the Foreign Secretary had this to say in the UK Parliament.
In light of additional information in emails written by Peter Mandelson, the Prime Minister has asked the Foreign Secretary to withdraw him as ambassador to the United States. The emails show, Mr. Speaker, that the depth and extent of Lord Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein is materially different from that known at the time of his appointment. In particular, Mr. Speaker, Lord Mandelson's suggestion that Jeffrey Epstein's first conviction was wrongful and should be challenged is new information. And in light of that, Mr. Speaker, and mindful, as we all are, of the victims of Epstein's appalling crimes, he has been withdrawn as ambassador with immediate effect.
Yeah, more of that playing out on Sky News UK right now, which of course you can get via the Sky News app. Get that for just $5 a month. Go to skynews.com.au and become a member. And just before we get to my dear friend Annalise in the United States, While you were working hard, paying taxes, those who use that money to take photos and videos of themselves, our politicians were embarrassing themselves and the nation on social media. First, a Labor MP who never disappoints.
56, 57, we have some great news for you. What is it, Sally?
Oh, we are giving all Australians cheaper medicines. It's fantastic. And Dr. Reid, you got the details, yeah?
Yep, that's exactly right. All PBS medications, $25. It hasn't been this low since 2004, since I was in year 6.
Please wash that out of my brain with another brainless video like this.
Where's Latrell?
That's
And the Finance Minister of Australia, behold!
Approved. Approved. I don't know. Excellent argument. Approved.
Dear God. Anyway, they apparently know politics better than everyone else, and look at the scoreboard. They keep on winning. All right, let's go to the United States right now. Annalise Nielsen, she joins us now to reflect upon what has happened in the past 24 hours. Unbelievable, the garbage that goes on here, but the difficulty of the past 24 hours when it comes to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Firstly, nice to see you for the first time in a little while. Love you, as always, my dear. Let's talk here, because everyone's heard about him and heard the sophistry in and around the personality, but let's talk about where he sits in frankly, the pyramid of MAGA. I would suggest that he's right up there with a Steve Bannon. He is that, he was that influential. He was actually tasked by the Trump campaign in 2024 with getting out the vote in the key swing states. And guess what? He delivered. He delivered new voters, and that delivered the presidency. So this guy wasn't just a podcaster, wasn't an influencer, wasn't a provocateur. He was also a deep, deep, deep participant in the MAGA movement.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think there's many podcasters that would get the flags flown at half-mast to the White House, and that's how influential Charlie Kirk was. And I think one of the reasons that a lot of people have been kind of playing catch-up on this is that he was really big among Gen Z, and that was his big strength. When he did these speeches on campus, when he did these debates and brought people out to discuss ideas, defend them, what he was doing was really empowering people who might be quietly feeling like they agreed with him to have those conversations, to know that they could put their perspective forward and that there were people that thought like him. I mean, how many people could pull a crowd out of an election cycle of 3,000 people at the University of Utah? And we saw that in the 2024 election. The youth vote was swung very favorably in Trump's favor. And normally that does go to the Democrats. And so we've been looking at, I was just looking at this before, among young men, Donald Trump won 56% of the vote, and they saw a 24% swing among young people in Michigan. That was the biggest swing they saw for young people in those swing states, but every swing state swung towards Trump. And a lot of that was down to Charlie Kirk and the conversations that he started and the pull he had on social media. I think we can't underestimate how viral those videos went and how influential he was around youth discussion of politics. Not many people get parodied in South Park. And he had a whole episode to him just a few weeks ago. And seriously, that is
100%.
Huge influence in the political discourse.
100%. And this is the point, right? So in the same way that the late 1980s, so let's sort of say mid-80s to mid-90s, the explosion of talk radio was one of the things that absolutely pushed Reagan for the 2 terms and then Bush, right? The world of social media, we certainly know, you can point as much as people want to say a Rogan, Kirk and plenty of others, but principally Kirk, was punching out video after video after video, day after day after day, week after week, month after month after month. And in many ways, most people's first exposure to him would be that he went into the belly of the beast, which is a university, a college, normally a lefty place, and to look people in the eye and, be a smartass about it sometimes, but get into the face and argue the basic logic or lack thereof. And yes, turn it into a bit of a performance. But I've got to say, it sort of sent a message back through the culture that, I'm not going to say that conservatism was the new punk, but the sacred cows had become the left, not the pearl clutches of the sort of people who were worried about Bart Simpson saying, eat your shorts on television.
Yeah, and I think anyone, regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum, we've all felt like that, where you get shouted down by someone and you don't feel like you have an opportunity to be heard, and you feel like if you do put that perspective forward, you're going to be punished more than the person shouting you down and not letting you speak. And I was reading up on Charlie Kirk after he was on South Park, because I've seen so many of his clips, and they do start those conversations where you say, oh, like, I don't agree with him on that. And you start debating with your friends or your family saying, well, I would have said this, I would have said that. But apparently he did a tour in the UK and it was a lot less successful because the students there were better at debating, and they do more of that, and they have that more contested school of ideas. And apparently in the US it was really just shooting fish in a barrel, and he was always accused of heavily editing. I don't think anyone in the media is going to start accuse anyone of editing, because we all do it, but that's how you get the information out. That's how you get those viral clicks. And really what he did was just ask questions, interrogate people's ideas, and if they hadn't done it themselves, they weren't in a very good position to mount their case.
Now, I want to talk about, I mean, who knows where this goes, all right? The reality is that America has been through many moments, and you have reported on those many moments where those of us in Australia, with the distance of Australia and the history of Australia, say, but surely this is the moment that. My perspective from this far away is, no, it isn't. It never is. It is also not the sign of a freshly or deeply divided country. They had a civil war. There was contested elections in 1960. 2000, of course, came down to the Supreme Court. It is not new that the joint is split, but whether it's split down the middle or side to side or gendered or race, well, then that's where things start to get more complicated. And I want to talk about some of the reaction that has happened on the right, where I have heard people like Steve Bannon say that Charlie Kirk, who was a colleague of his, they worked on the same sort of internet station, basically, back-to-back shows, says that he is a casualty of war. Now, that's a pretty full-on thing to say about how do you respond to a casualty of war. To others, like Greg Gutfeld on Fox, who said that, you know, people have been woken the F up to what, I don't know. My suggestion is that but no one will listen, of course, is that you need to use the moment to prove that you are better than the people who did this, not to exact revenge for it, because then it's a cycle that never ends. And we have seen many conflicts and many wars where it's your justification for doing something worse is because they did this to me first.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there will be people out there that want retribution for this. And I think whoever did do this deserves every bit of punishment that is available under the law. And I know the Utah governor was suggesting the death penalty. I don't think many people are going to shed a tear if that comes to pass. What I think really need to focus on is the fact that Charlie Kirk, at the end of the day, he believed in freedom of speech, and that's exactly why he did everything. You can't underestimate how horrifying it is to see a person advocating for freedom of speech and going out there and talking to real people, literally being shot in the neck to be silenced. But I think that has to be the response here, to not be silenced. And that's where the risk is, that people stop speaking out, they stop going out in public. And it is scary in America. Guns are a real problem. They are a real issue when you go to public events like this. I always have it in the back of my head. I was thinking if I'd been at that rally, I would have been probably at the back, sorry, not a rally, event. I would have been on one of the back balconies to get out quickly, because it is just one of those realities that you live with here. But the political violence in particular it has become more frequent. I mean, we've had 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump. We've had lawmakers in Minnesota shot down in their homes. And you can blame social media. It's certainly fuel on the fire. There's always been this kind of divisiveness in America, but there is just kind of this growing sense of frustration that people aren't feeling heard. And that's exactly what Charlie Kirk was trying to do. So I think that has to be the response to this, is to just keep talking and keep defending freedom of speech.
Absolutely. We'll practice that in a moment's time. Last one here. To the people who are watching us, who may be from Western Australia, like your good self, or from all over the rest of the country, who might go, hang on, you know, Sky News, why do they keep talking about this one bloke? Why have they spoken about him all day? Why have people become emotional? What would you say to those who know it's a big deal, but what would you say to them about why it is such an emotional thing for those who get it, for those who see it, and for those who understand the impact of this bloke?
I would say it's such a violent end to such a noble cause to be just promoting freedom of speech, that he was a lightning rod for young people. Revolutions tend to start with young people, and he was such a central figure in that. As you said at the very beginning, he was extremely influential among the MAGA movement. He didn't let up in his support of it in that time, and the Trump administration's kept very careful note of everyone who dropped off the radar and wanted to come back once he was on the up. And he has had personal friendships with so many people at the top. He had a direct line to Trump, he had a direct line to Vance, he had a direct line to all the Trump children, all the big anchors at Fox, all the big commentators. He was a galvanizing force over the years, and he's been a fixture. And so every single conservative voice in America right now is second-guessing themselves, because they know, I can't necessarily go out in public to these events because what if I'm the next target? We don't know who this person was. And so this is an absolutely defining moment. I completely agree with you. America's had an actual civil war. This is the kind of thing that simmers in the US. They've always kind of had a strong contention of beliefs and ideas, but this is a really seismic event.
Well, and it's a perfect bookends to talk about this with you and then with Megyn Kelly a little bit later, because she literally was planning on going on the road, and one of the people she was going on the road with was Charlie Kirk. She wasn't thinking about, security to a degree, but not the degree and whether it happens at all. My assumption is that she, like many others, will steel themselves and go back out there and get involved in that debate, because that is the way, as you say, to defeat those forces who seek to silence. Annalise, so good to see you. I look forward to seeing you very soon. You're looking wonderful as always, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you.
All right, we love her. Annalise Nelson there in the United States.